Oh, good afternoon, everyone. Dave with Summit Racing back with you at our virtual performance parts expo that we're putting on this week, the normal week of the SEMA show out in Las Vegas. As always, we like to chat with some guests during that show, and no different here. Today we have Kevin Tetz and Ian Johnson with us of Hands on Cars and Big Tire Garage, respectively. Guys, thanks for making the time.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's good to be here. If we can't be anywhere else, we might as well be here with you.
That's right. No, I remember last year meeting up with you guys out at the show at our trailer, and everything was kind of rocking and rolling. And here we are 12 months later, and
Not
how did you guys survive the year? What's it been like for you?
Yeah. The difference is this year, we're not going to get some crusty guy coming up saying, "Hey, I need another header gasket for the 900-23 headers."
That's right.
Got that here. Can I put it in my luggage?
Yes. Well, they could comment that here, I suppose.
Probably will.
They may not walk away with it, but
Yeah,
But that happened.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Absolutely believe it. That's standard trade show right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, year for us has not really changed a whole lot. I mean, we spend our days in a shop working, so that's what we've done. So we basically, a couple things shook up a little bit, but nothing crazy. Still build cars. Kevin's built his hands-on car stuff, and I built my Willys wagon, and that's pretty much what we've been doing.
Yeah. Well, we both got our own shop and our own studio, have had for years. And Ian's got his own stuff that, many plates are spinning between he and I. And we're about 15 minutes away from each other from our building. So if I ever need him to bail me out, he just comes over and helps me out, and vice versa. We've done cross-pollination projects and all that kind of stuff. But what's really cool is, like Ian said, we never really stopped. We both work by ourselves. I've always been stir crazy. So for the most part, if I do production, I farm out the production parts of it. And, we just wrench and put tools on it. When I get lost, I call somebody that knows more than me.
there you go. There you go. So let's start with some projects, of course, for the shows you're working on. Let's talk about the shows, Hands on Cars, Big Tire Garage. Just kind of give us the synopsis of what those shows are all about for those that don't know. And
Ian, why don't you talk about it, since one of yours is right behind us?
Yeah, we'll start there. Yeah, so it's pretty simple. The whole premise behind what I do and Kevin does right now is we have some other gigs, but we spend most of our time basically making what would be considered traditional television shows, but we stream them out through our partners' social media channels. So if you've been hanging out with Summit Racing social media stuff, you've probably seen some hands-on cars. You've probably seen some of Kevin's builds. He's doing a Jag right now. You may have seen the beginning of this 53 Willys wagon that I'm building right now. And it's sort of a similar concept, hardcore how-to, start to finish, one project. This wagon right here, I've had it in my garage at my house for like 7 years waiting to build it. And this was just the right year to do it. So it's on an 07 Jeep JK chassis. It's got the new Cummins R2.8 4-cylinder diesel in it. Tremec TKO 4050, which is their new off-road 5-speed. Atlas transfer case, custom built Spider Trax axles, front and rear, 37-inch tall Mickey Thompson tires. And it's now sort of at the point where it's getting close to getting final paint. The paint that's on it right now is just primer sealer. Kevin and good friend of both of ours, Jeremy Winters, he took on the task of turning my metalwork into quality auto body finished paint, and so that's how it ended up looking like this. But it's been fun, it's been a cool project. The goal was to have it done and at SEMA this year, but since SEMA didn't happen, we just kind of took a pause and let it breathe a little bit and kept working on it. But it's going back together right now, and it'll be done by the end of the year. It'll be at Easter Jeep Safari next year. So it's probably the only 4-inch chopped 53 Willys wagon in the world at this point. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, if you can't be at SEMA and debut a car, I guess Easter Jeep Safari is a good goal for that as well.
In my world, that's SEMA and it's fun, but for the off-road guys, we got some other bigger hitters. We've got Easter Jeep Safari, Pomona Off-Road Expo and Pomona. Those are our SEMAs. So that's normally where our stuff shows up. But this one was going to be so nice because Kevin and Jeremy were kind of tag teaming the paint and body on it, and it was going to be worthy of going to SEMA for sure. So
what I think is cool is this one. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's one of the first rigs that I've ever seen Ian build well, probably a couple. I could count them without taking the glove
very
off of his
many.
hand that are going to have a nice paint job on. It's my world. And so he said, I'm thinking maybe this one will be, maybe we won't roll on bed liner on the outside of it. Maybe we'll have a nice.
I was on my wife, because everything else I own is like, I call it patina, but really it's just how it comes out of the field. And so normally that's what they look like, because you're going to bounce them off a rock anyway. But my wife specifically requested one shiny, pretty car. So this one was going to be it. So that's how it all started.
So Kevin, you're on.
Hey, you know what? My mantra is there's more paint in the can. I should make a hashtag out of that. But there always is more paint in the can. And if he bounces it off of trees or rocks, whatever, we painted it once. My whole gig, what got me into TV, what got me into the visual media, magazines, everything, was teaching people how to do this stuff. So, you know, it's no big deal. People get freaked out over paint and body stuff and thinking that, you know, once you crash it, it's never done again. No. It's not how it works. You just, if you can paint it in the first place, if you can even do the project or conceive of it, well, then you can redo it and you can repair it. That's really all it's about. So if he takes this thing and, you know, gets some tree scrub, or what do they call them, Tennessee pinstripes over here, so what? You know, I'll do a how-to on how to buff out tree scratches from a cool master paint job. You know, it's all good.
Another opportunity. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you've done lots of how-tos, especially on the paint side of things, and I know we're working on a few ideas too with the Summit brand. But yeah, that's really good advice. I think so many people are just intimidated by paint and body in particular, and I guess the advice you just gave was to not be afraid is the number one piece of advice you have. But
well, let me tell on myself here, Dave. With the Jaguar that you guys are running now, the how-tos on the Jaguar, as we know, the last 20% of a project takes 80% of the time. So the car was done. Like for more than a year, the car was done. The dome lights didn't work. The AC wasn't gassed up. The courtesy lights when you open the doors, the power door lock kit was still sitting in the box. All of this stuff I've been procrastinating. So for a lot of people, paint and body is their thing that they avoid and they don't like to do. For me, it's wiring, and I put that stuff up on the shelf and did other things intentionally, thinking that I could call one of my buddies and say, TC, come and help me out. Show me how to wire this power door lock kit in our Ian. And guess what? Everybody's busy. The craziest thing during this COVID thing is that all the shops are just wide open. I mean, guys watching this now, they're wide open. Everybody's busier than they've ever been. And the reasons we could debate for hours. But long story short, I didn't have anybody to help me. So I had to dive in and learn this stuff. I had to learn how to wire a relay. I had to learn how to actually read the instructions, because as you know, most of the things that we do on these cars have instructions. So long story short, I just had to dig in and elbow myself out of the way and get in and do it. So what I found is that was very empowering for me. I'm way less intimidated with diving into a wiring project right now. The same thing with my cetane truck. You know, we had to interface the race pack dash and the Holley performance thing, and had to read OBD2 signal and output and all the little things that happen with all those cables. So I know I'm babbling on about it, but it was an opportunity for me to get out of my head on that stuff and learn how to do it. So the same thing with paint and body stuff. You know, watch some videos. Call me, message me. I do tech support through social media and all that kind of stuff. I'll walk you through, and I might slap you on the side of the head virtually if you're asking dumb questions. But at the same time, it's something that we can teach you how to do, and really that's what our how-to shows have been about from day one.
Yeah, you guys have been doing it very, very well for a long time now. And Ian, what's your favorite part to dive into on these projects?
You know, it's funny because we had a whole conversation about that not too long ago with somebody about how, for me, there's no part that I don't like. I like every single part of the project except for paint and body. That's always been the thing I didn't want to do. But after doing this, I might actually tackle some of it now, because I've seen it happen in real life, and I know that, you know, you could just don't worry about that. It'll get fixed later type of thing.
Yeah.
But I would say probably if I had to pick one thing that if I wanted to do it every single day for all day, every day, it's going to be rebuilding a transmission or a rear axle. Those are two of my favorites. I like that on the mechanic side, and then on the building side, it's going to be any type of tube work. So that's just too much fun. I mean, when you're slinging a bunch of 1 3/4 DOM around building a roll cage or a chassis or something like that, that's just because in my world, if you're talking about race cars, which is where I started, was building pro street cars back in like the early 90s. And if you do any type of NHRA stuff, there's all these rules that you gotta pay attention to. Like tube can only be in here and the tube can only be there. Yeah. But I mean, those are all made by engineers anyway. So, but it's like, if you're building for a sanctioning body, I think that's really, I mean, it's a skill, but at the same time, for me, it's not as much fun. But when you're building an off-road car, there are no rules. You can do whatever you want. And so we get to do some pretty crazy cool stuff, which is lots of fun. And so those would be my two favorites, to be honest with you. It's me pulling tube and or building axles and transmissions.
Yeah, it's certainly another thing that I think people can be, somewhat intimidated by as well. It's a little you got to get out the heavy machinery for that sometimes. But so let's go back and talk about the Willys a little bit. You mentioned it. It's a little bit different than some of the things you've done in the past, and you've had this for a while. But any particular projects from the past that stand out to you that you really enjoyed working on more than others?
I don't know. My good thing in my life is I have almost everything, not everything I built, but I've kept a lot of my favorites, except for two. And one of them is owned by one of my good buddies, and the other one has lost to me in the ethos. So I'll rebuild it at one point in time. So probably my favorites that I've ever done that I like a lot still to drive are my 715. So that's my classic 1.25 military M715 1968 that I built. That thing is still tons of fun to wheel, tons of fun to drive. There's so few of them. They only built like 26,000 of them. So to have one as like a throwdown hardcore rock crawler is pretty cool. And then the little diesel powered Suzuki that I built years ago, that's probably one of my favorite. And that one my buddy owns. And so I get to visit it, but I don't get to own it. So it's cool because I still get to play with it occasionally, which is pretty neat.
Yeah. So when you guys are deciding or conceiving of different projects, is this all genuinely things that you guys would want to work on, or how does the television, social media aspect play into that? Do you guys end up doing maybe some things that you thought you might not work on, or maybe you wouldn't have if it was just you doing this on your own, or how does that come into play?
You can answer that, Kevin, then I'll chime in at the end of it.
So the 71 C10 pickup that I finished on season 2 of Hands on Cars is a perfect example of that. So C10 trucks are hot, 67 to 72 body style. It's hot. It's the new 69 Camaro, and justifiably so. They're great platforms. They're good looking trucks, all that kind of stuff. So I had one. I had it was a parts mule that I would do videos on, and it was, I wrote a book called Patina: How to Preserve and Restore, and it was I did signage on the door because it was all crap. Anyway, so we're talking about what do we do for season 2 of Hands on Cars. The Jag was a successful series. A lot of people watched it. A lot of people still watch it, and so it was like, okay, cool. What do we do? Well, let's do a truck. Okay, I was on trucks for 10 years. That turned into truck tech. It's a no-brainer. My first vehicle was a truck. As a matter of fact, my first 2 vehicles were trucks. So it's let's do a truck. Hey, I've got this C10. Great. What are we going to do with it? So the body was shot. So we're going to reskin it. What are we going to put under the hood? So I'm at Ian's other shop before he built this Taj Mahal, and there's this enormous engine sitting in the corner, and it was a Cummins 5-liter ISV engine, and he said, hey, what if we put that in your C10? I'm not going to do anything with it now, because he was going to do the R2.8.
He's going to put it in there.
Yeah, he was going to put it in here.
No way it would have fit in there.
But he changed his mind with R2.8 because it's such a great little platform. And I said, okay, can you make it round? And he said, I think so. And so he said, okay, great. So I was scared to death of it because I was so unfamiliar with it. But at the same time, it was really interesting because, I mean, there's been Duramax swapped C10 trucks. I saw one in 2010 at SEMA. And there's been all kinds of the like the 5.9s and the 12-valve Cummins engines put into C10 pickups. Great. Nobody had ever put, that I knew of, had put a 5-liter V8 turbo diesel out of a Titan in a C10 truck. For me, it ticked the boxes off. It's V8. That's cool. It screams hot rod. It's small displacement. It'll probably fit. And it had never been done before. So like I said, I was nervous and intimidated about it, but at the same time, how many times do we get to put our hands on something that's the first ever in the industry? It's not very often. Hot rodding's been around for a long time. Everything under the sun has been done. So it was really cool to embrace a project that you don't see. And the end result of that is that, when we pulled up at the Pro Touring Truck Shootout with it, people either thought it had a lot of lifter noise, or they knew right away it was a diesel Pro Touring truck. And boy, it creates its own car show. I'm so proud of that thing. It turned out really nice. We put a slick paint job on it thanks to Jeremy Winters and Randy Borcherding and TC Pennick and all my buddies that helped me, get the body straight. But when people realize what it is, we've got 26 inches of engine setback. We've got 1,000 foot-pounds at the tire. So it literally scaled it out. I borrowed Ian's scales, and it's 4951 weight bias. That's Porsche Carrera material at 3,843 pounds. This is a monster. So it's the world's first. It's really a well balanced out truck, literally and figuratively speaking, and people like the way it looks. So what started out as me almost saying, no, I don't think so, let's just do a twin turbo LS, turned into something that really is now a cornerstone or maybe a benchmark, because it opened up the possibility for this engine platform, which is really a lot of different places, to maybe be transplanted into some vehicles. So I know that's a long answer to your question. That's just how I roll. But that is, in a nutshell, the anatomy of a season of hands-on cars. It's hot rodding, Dave. It's what people have been doing forever. We should do this. Why? Because it's fun. That's it.
Yep. Now, you mentioned some LS work too, and I know that's you've been working on the Jag, of course, and then I think currently you're on another LS project. That I'm sure that's been a learning experience as well as you've gone along. So talk about those two projects, the Jag and the Miata, a little bit.
So the Jag was an exercise in pissing off British guys. So I think
ironically, the show is watched almost by more Brits than Americans on Amazon.
On Amazon Prime. But the nucleus of that show is I had a 76 XJS years ago. My wife and I bought it, and it quite actually burned to the ground in my driveway because it was such a turd. And it was V8 swapped. It had a 305 in it, and it was just a horrible car. And I love the way they look. It sits in the road nice, but it was a horrible car. So we ended up getting another one, a 1990, much newer, had an airbag, and got it out of Arizona. So it's a rust-free car. So all of those things are off the table. Now it's a nice straight car. Let's put an LS in it and have a nice driver that looks really cool. So that was the Jag thing. And then things start to unfold. And then, we got on board with Holly Performance, and they had the MSD Atomic EFI intake manifold that made it look like an exotic manifold, and we tried out their new mid-mount accessory drive on it, and the Dominator transmission controller controls the monster transmission. And it became an exercise in how cool can you actually make a Jaguar XJS, and so Pro Touring Luxury, I don't know, did we coin another category? I'm not sure.
How many Camaro parts can you fit in an XJS?
It's lots.
And the answer is all of them.
Yeah.
It's literally a Camaro with a Jaguar skin on it.
Oh, it is. We kept what was good about the XJS, which is the body and the suspension. And everything else is aftermarket. Yeah. Everything else literally on that car can be purchased at summitracing.com. Yeah. So for me, it wasn't a catalog car. There was a lot of fabrication, a lot of stuff had to be done, but certainly a lot of off-the-shelf parts made that car what it is. And it's a really great running and driving car right now. So it was fun to make that one. And LS engines, let's face it, the LT engines are coming up now, and they're becoming more available and more affordable. But the LS engine is a paradigm. It's decades long as far as the availability of these engines. We're never going to run out of them. And it's a great viable platform. So it made perfect sense with the Jag.
Yeah, so, that wiring, though. Talk about that, just the wiring on the Jag.
Oh, it's in a box. It's in a box in my shed because they won't take it at the local dump. So it's the Brits call it the Lucas Prince of Darkness wiring system. So it's all low voltage stuff, 110
not daunting at all.
Fuses you can't get to. It was a nightmare.
That's my phone ringing. I'll silence it.
So
hi, Mom.
So we gutted it. We used painless wiring, and the old analog gauges. We use Dakota digital gauges, and it's got a GPS speedometer, and everything works every time you turn the key on. And when something doesn't work, I know where to find it now, instead of pulling the back seat out to get to the heater, the accessory fuse. So, it was a way to improve what the promise of Jaguar was, which is literally what we said in the show. We fulfilled the promise that the Jaguar couldn't. So it was cool. And if that's arrogant and bold, so what? Sue me.
Yeah, that wiring episode that cracked me up. Just the whole name of that. It's unbelievable. It's funny.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about going to shows like SEMA and Easter Jeep Safari, all the shows you guys go to, and just you know something that hasn't been done. An idea that hasn't been done when you hear it, I guess, you like the cetane, you hadn't seen something like that. How do you guys find inspiration in shows like that? And how's it gone this year with just a little, I'm assuming a little bit less travel on the docket?
Yeah, there's way less travel. I mean, normally I earned my companion pass with Southwest by February of the year, but this year I didn't. So it's, we're actually talking about that not too long ago. I'm at last time I was on a plane was March. And that's not normally normal. In a normal year, I do two flights a month, sometimes, usually, somewhere. So, but no, for the show stuff, I like going to shows because I like to go and look at other stuff that isn't my world. So, like this wagon, I mean, most of the guys who build off-road trucks, they would not do what we're doing to this wagon, because everything I'm doing to this wagon I stole from like hot rod guys. So that's kind of like what I like to do if I go to a show, is I look for inspiration outside of what I'm doing to kind of come up with some ideas. It's really easy to sort of fall into that rut of just building the same thing over and over and over again. So it's fun to sort of like stretch out and look, and what's going on in the import world, what's going on in the tuner car stuff. I'm fortunate. I have a kid who's like 20, so he keeps me abreast of what I'm doing, how uncool it is, and how cool his stuff is. So I get to look into the world of the BMWs and hammered cars and all that kind of jazz. So that's really what kept me going. What I do when I'm looking at a show for projects. But then aside from that, for new projects, I still have a list that's like 20 cars deep of what I'm going to build. So I don't think I'm ever going to run out. I'll just come up with an idea late at night, jot it down, make a note, and I know what I'm going to build next, and it's going to be different. And I just have a continuing running list of cars I still have to build in my head. So that's just how it's going to work.
Are some of those TV cars, and some of them are just for your own views, or how does that work?
The beauty of what I'm doing with Big Tire Garage now, and like I do the Motor Trend Show 4-wheeler, and that's also all my cars. Ironically, that was part of my deal with them, was I get to keep a lot of cars at school. But the beauty of what I'm doing right now with the Big Tire Garage and the social media push and accessing, basically sharing content with people through those platforms, is the fact that I get to share whatever I want with anybody, because I don't have the constraints of a traditional network on that pile, where it's got to be this kind of car to fit into that type of television show. So I get to kind of make my own rules. So probably just like everything else, everything I do will probably end up in one of these social media based shows somehow. Because I own the production company that makes Big Tire Garage and makes Kevin's show and makes the other stuff that we're working on, I'm fortunate that I get to call the shots, which is kind of fun. So I kind of get to decide what I'm going to build and when I'm going to build it. Some of the stuff will be my car, but it won't be built by me, type of thing. We're playing around with some other forms of making TV shows that are a little bit different, which will be kind of fun. But yeah, the beauty of social media is, I call it like the highlight reel of life, right? Because people get sucked into that when they're like, grass is greener, looking at people's social media account. But I mean, if my mom called me like 8 months ago, concerned that I drank too much bourbon, because she saw way too many bourbon posts on my. Well, it's like Mad Men up. When I built this building, I said the one thing I got to have is a bourbon bar, because I want it to be like Mad Men in this joint. So it's a good time here. So it's yeah. So anyway, if you scroll through my social media, you'll see there's a good mix of everything in there. I post my bug in there sometimes, and you'll see my son's car popping up in there, the BMWs that he has too. So there's a good mix of everything in there for sure.
So let me follow up on kind of what you said. You said something about when you go to car shows, what do you look for? When there were car shows or SEMA or trade shows or stuff like that, kind of what I look for is the crowd of people around something. And it's not like I don't have original thoughts. I do, and I've got my own design ideas. But I want to see what makes other people tick and what looks cool for other people. So examples of there was a Z car, 240Z, a couple of years ago at SEMA. Beautiful job, but it had exposed fastener flares on it. Super tight job, just this crazy import. It was like a Skyline version, and it was an Asian builder. This thing had a crowd around it the whole week of SEMA. And I'll never forget this. It was in the late 90s. I was working for Mustangs and Fords magazine. I was walking around with my editor up at the Carlisle All Ford Nationals in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And up on the hill, not even in the special invite tent, if you can imagine this, but up on the hill in early Mustang section was Mike and Jim Ring's 65 fastback, or I would say 65 convertible. They just had a collision shop at the time. They threw the book at that stuff. They took every takeoff part for the last 3 current model years and put it on that car. And they were sitting there in lawn chairs with a cooler of beer between them. It's Mike and Jim Ring. It's the first time I ever met them. So my editor was peeked over the car. And so we looked around it. By the end of that show, the grass was worn down to mud around that car. So many people had looked at that car, and they had magazine features. They had interest of Ford. That was, I'm not going to say it was the launch of their career because they're responsible for that, but it was certainly a big part of their media launch and the people's awareness of what those guys are capable of. And everybody knows now what Mike and Jim Ring are capable of. So it was a cool thing to be a part of that. And that's what I mean by watching other people make a crowd around a car. That said, Ian touched on something as well. So social media is the version of that right now. You can kind of see what makes people tick. And short of the just aggressively mean comments that people make sometimes, you can kind of put your finger on the pulse of what's happening in the industry through social. So yes, I miss the car shows, but if you pay attention to what's online, you can kind of figure out what the next trends are and stuff like that, and honestly, what piques people's interest. So it's kind of cool to be in both worlds and be able to pivot like that. And like we said right at the beginning of this cast, we haven't really changed what we're doing at all. We're still working on the same stuff we were this time last year, except for I'm not on a plane catching the flu from somebody.
I miss the food in Vegas. That's what I miss.
Yeah,
I miss that the most.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you hit it right on the head. There's forums and there's groups and there's just, you're right. There's so many ways to stay in touch, even outside of the shows. And having said that, I was going to ask sort of what, where do you kind of see the future of your guys' kind of specialty area, or what trends do you guys see coming up in the areas that you guys focus on pretty heavily?
I would say in the world of off-road, you got 2 trends, well, 3 really. So you've got the beauty of what we do is we don't rely on car shows to have fun. So our adventure side of our world didn't really even stop this year. As a matter of fact, if anything, it kind of grew. Well, because we were
already socially distanced.
Yeah, because sitting in your car in a line of Jeeps, you're already socially distanced as it is. So so a lot of our stuff, we actually see it growing in the world of off-roading and overlanding, and nobody wants to go on a plane, but they still want to travel, so they're camping more, and so they're looking at, well, how do I make that interesting with my family? Well, maybe I'll get a Jeep and build an overland rig, and that's what I'll do for fun, because you can still do it. You can't close the sky, so you can still get out and have some fun and look at stars and stuff. So I see, huge growth in that area. I think Bronco coming out this year has kind of like kicked that in the pants as well. I think Ford really like quadrupled down on that area of the world, offering amazing vehicle. It's like they did a product survey of every Jeep owner with the stuff they don't like about their Jeeps, and fixed it with the Ford Bronco. So I'm pretty excited to lay my hands on one of those. I'm looking for those to get out. And then a lot of our race stuff's growing, the Ultra 4 stuff and the hardcore competitive rock crawling, that's still going big and getting bigger by the day. So I think that in our world, the only thing that's kind of knocking on our door, and I've laid my hands on a couple of them, and I think it's exciting, and I'm going to build one shortly. We're just waiting for some technology to catch up, and that is we're going to do some EV stuff in the four-wheel drive world. I think that's a good there's a lot of technology out there that we can steal, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. My wife's got an electric car and she loves it, and it's great. It's fun to drive. It's fast as all get out when you drive it. So being able to take some of that technology and maybe slide it into some off-road stuff, I think might be kind of fun.
Yeah, looking over there at the SEMA 360 show a little bit, just kind of peeking in this week. It seems like there's a lot of news coming out on electric vehicles, or a lot of interest in it, like you said. And same thing with the outdoors, the merging sort of. You mentioned the overlanding and camping, and you can't buy a kayak around here. You know, people even as basic as that. You know, the outdoor lifestyle type products. Off the shelves. So I agree.
Remember, overlanding is just the new version of car camping that we did back in the 80s. It's just a more expensive version of car camping. I make fun of overlanders all the time. It's the most expensive way to go somewhere and pretend you're homeless. It really, really is. Like you spend $150,000 to go cook. I watch them all and I love them. I think they're great. But if you watch anybody who produces any overlanding content, it all revolves around one thing, and that is they all go somewhere, and the first thing they do is cook a meal. That's all. It's like they go somewhere and make. It's like, let's go make dinner in the woods. It's basically what overlanding is. But it's true. That's what it is. It's just car camping, just way more expensive, and you can get a little bit further out.
It's what we used to do up in Canada when we couldn't afford to go to Disneyland. Let's go get the bush buggies and go up in the hills.
Yeah.
And I guess we were way ahead of our time.
Yeah, you guys are trendsetters.
I want to talk about something that you asked Ian, and that's the whole EV thing. Mm-hmm. I run into lots of guys that are standing there with their arms crossed and looking down their nose at it. And it's here, buddy. It's coming. Embrace it. It doesn't mean it's going to take over the world. There will always be internal combustion, but EV is here. And so there's even TV shows about a conversion show about doing the old 356 Porsches, and Carmen Guy is into electric vehicles. It's in the UK somewhere. You know what? You know, you can be afraid of it and you can be pissed off at it, but you can't deny that format of motivation is here. All the OEs are accepting it. Hell, some overseas countries have banned internal combustion engines past, what is it, 2045 or something like that?
Who knows?
So anyway, it's coming. So us as a hot rodding community, we better get on board. Otherwise, we're going to be left out in the pasture, angry. So for me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what propels it. Is it fun? Can we learn it? Can we have a cool vehicle? Can we build something with that? Yes. What's that guy's name? Richie B? He's the guy that Tesla was so angry at him because he would buy salvage Teslas and try and buy parts, and they would shut him out. So then he did all these blogs about whining about Tesla. He can't get parts, and he got this grassroots following on hot rodding Teslas, and now he's doing body swaps and stuff like that. All it takes is one guy like that. And now EV is cool in hardcore custom car building, rat rods, stuff like that. So my rant is about, let's get on board with the next trend. I remember in 1994 when the EEPROM chip came out and everybody said hot rodding is dead. Mm-hmm. Guess what happened? Some younger guys came in and they said, "Bam! You got 40 horsepower with me just moving a keyboard mouse." So get over yourselves. EV is coming, and it doesn't mean that our LS engines are going to be less viable. It's just there's room for something else, you know?
No, we've seen electric in everything. I mean, especially a show like, I keep going back to SEMA because that's that time of year, but you know, monster trucks and dragsters, and I mean, it's been out there for a while. So, you know, one last question. I guess this is outside of the obvious, or at least hopefully the obvious. What are you guys looking forward to most in 2021? I know personally, I think you know, people are less likely to take things for granted, obviously, and that goes for the events and shows. I know a lot of people have spent extra time in their garages this year, which is great, but I know a lot of people wanted to get out more, and so I'm just interested to hear what you guys are looking forward to the most in the hopefully the upcoming year.
Number one, for it to start, that'd be nice. Number two, I want to put this dumpster fire of 2020 behind us.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. For me, I guess the thing I'm looking forward to most is probably just like you said. It's just, you know, get a little bit of normalcy back into our lives, whatever that looks like. I don't know what it is. I'm sure for everyone it's going to be different. I don't think we're going to go back to the normal that we had before. I think there's going to be different. The beauty of you know, what I do, what Kevin does, what a lot of guys who work on cars for a living do is, you know, we don't have offices, we have shops that we work in. So I think that part is probably not going to change too much. So I think for me, it's just, I like to get a little bit back to normal, get people out having fun, living their life, doing their thing. I think you hit on it though. I think people are going to be a little bit more. They won't take it for granted as much. I think they'll be like, you know what? I've always said I wanted to have a hot rod. I'm going to build a hot rod. I've always wanted a Jeep. I'm going to build a Jeep. I think you're going to see a lot of people who sort of look at it like that. I think people are going to stop kicking that can down the road, and they're going to say, you know what? I need something. I wanted a project car. I'm getting a project car, which I think is the right way to do it.
Yeah. For me, I'm looking forward to, I love car shows and show and shines and autocrosses and stuff. And so I look forward to driving season 3 of Hands on Cars, which we didn't talk about much, but it's coming. It's going to be a 550 wheel horsepower LS powered Miata. And I'm so stoked about that. I can't stand it. So I want to.
I'm worried about that.
I'm not worried about that. So I want to drive that. I want to take cetane out. But for me, I'm an optimist. I look forward to what 2021 is going to bring. What got me into this whole mess in the first place is teaching, training, and education of other people, passing on the skills that I've learned. So the interesting thing that's happened over the summer is that the whole world has shifted to virtual learning. So what I've been doing is creating a virtual training course for paint and body skills that I plan on building different platforms of. So I'm really excited about that format. And with tragedy built, there becomes necessity, and then ingenuity maybe, and maybe I can figure out another itty to put in there. But there's lots of them. So I'm looking forward to test driving my new training platform. It's going to be really exciting to me. So 2021. Like Ian said, we're going to put the dumpster fire in the rearview mirror of 2020 for a lot of different reasons. But 2021, I've been an optimist, ever since I could stand upright, because I was so thankful I didn't fall down. And so 2021 for me is going to be, it's going to be a really interesting tell as to where the trends are going. My training program, new TV shows. Let's face it, where we are right now, that's where people are watching. So we've seen television change between us. I'm looking forward to seeing where television goes. So that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to most in 21.
Yeah, I think a lot of good things to come. From here, I'm really looking forward to sharing a lot of the work you guys have been doing. We've partnered on some of these projects. We've been fortunate enough that you guys allowed us to help you out with them, and
you guys have been fantastic support. Thank you, man.
Well, I'm looking forward to sharing all that content out and showing everybody what you guys are working on, and I think it's going to be a great year. Like you, I'm feeling pretty positive once we get this year behind us, and looking forward to seeing what's next. But you guys, thanks so much for all your time, and always enjoy talking to you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. See you soon.